I'm here with Robert Ince, a partner at Grant Thornton. Robert, tell us, what are your clients telling you in this first month and a bit of 2022?
Well, thanks for coming in, Gavin, and welcome to Grant Thornton. Look, it's early days, yes. I think January, everyone emerged from January a bit shell-shocked. You know, if you go back to leading into November, I think everyone thought we were on the home run with COVID. You know, we had the vaccinations were in place, and we were looking at, you know, the state borders reopening and so on. And then obviously Omicron came along. People started isolating. We started getting supply chain pressures, and there was all the knock-on effects, you know, along the way, which resulted in effectively a self-imposed lockdown rather than a government-mandated one. So yeah, January I think has been tough for, you know, anyone in the hospitality industry, anyone obviously in tourism, which has been, you know, they've been doing it tough for a few years now. But many other businesses, pretty much all industry sectors, have been affected by the supply chain problems, and of course people, you know, being encouraged to work from home as they were throughout January. You know, there was state government announcements indicating that they should, if they could, work from home. You know, that stopped people coming into the CBDs, and in turn that had a knock-on effect with the businesses that would have serviced those workers during the working week. But you know, the thing is, especially with COVID, as all of us should know, that things change very quickly. And so, you know, this week we've been told the borders are going to reopen, you know, in a couple of weeks. Now the Premier is indicating that it would be nice if we could all start working in offices again. And you know, so those things will have an effect. You get more people in the CBD, that's a boost to those local businesses. The borders reopening, I don't think, you know, speaking to the operators, that we'll see an immediate impact. You know, the flights have to get going again. The relationships with international partners need to get back on track, and of course all the regions around Australia are going to be competing for market share. So things, you know, there's a bit of a lead time to getting things back to normal, assuming there's no other curveballs, you know, thrown at us along the way.
Right, thrown our way. It's almost what we have to get used to, isn't it? Is curveballs coming. So our international borders reopen to the world on February 21. As you said there, you know, you've been speaking a little bit with local tourism operators. I mean, how are they feeling? Have they been able to hang in there up to this point? Are they able to, you know, ramp up, gear up, find the staff that, you know, yes, it will take some time for international tourists to come back, but, you know, they need to start preparing now. What are they telling you on the ground?
Look, I think the announcement has been welcomed. You know, there's excitement and some, you know, trepidation as well. What the announcement does give is a bit of confidence to actually get out and start, you know, recruiting, get out and start making plans and you know, talking to your international partners again. But you know, there will be a lead time, and the message coming back is that it will be the middle of the year before numbers start, you know, really getting back to where you know, people would like them to be.
Where they like to be. And then I guess finally, what about the resilience of business owners? You know, you talk to clients across a whole range of sectors here at Grant Thornton. I mean, you know, how's almost their mental state? You know, are people sort of, are they still resilient? Are they still, you know, are they ready to get cracking again?
Oh, look, I think on the whole, business owners and employees are highly, you know, resilient. You know, there have been obviously some, you know, business failures along the way, but to a degree, that's Cairns. You know, there are always going to be some businesses that are, you know, weaker than others, but and COVID has exposed that. But on the whole, I think business operators have, they've done it tough, many of them, and particularly in tourism and hospitality. But they've hung in there, and we're certainly hoping we've turned a corner from a business viewpoint.
And what are people coming to you at Grant Thornton about at this time of year? What type of inquiries and issues are you dealing with here at the firm?
We've got our normal sort of workload with compliance and regulatory activities, be they tax or audit. Our insolvency team has got work, although probably not as much. I think the government sort of JobKeeper and so on programs sort of did help a lot of businesses gladly from not tipping over the edge. There has been an uptake in transactional activity against all odds. I think that's linked to property and investment prices. So there is still confidence out there for the future.
All right, so interesting few months ahead, and of course a federal election on the horizon, which
absolutely.
We'll have a chat to Redlich about that, in fact. Robert Ince from Grant Thornton, thanks so much.
Okay, thanks for dropping by, Gavin.
All right, I'm here with James Harding from Redlich. James, we heard from Grant Thornton about how the private sector's feeling, how businesses are travelling at the moment, but keen to talk to you about a bit more of a helicopter view. What does the city need to do over the next, let's say, 3 to 6 months, obviously in the context of a federal election?
Thanks, Gavin. Look, Cairns is in an interesting place right now. We've come out of a bit of a shell shock last 3 or 4 months. We had a lot of shutdowns, obviously, last year. We've come out of those shutdowns, and then we've had a lot of, government sort of mandates and rules that have come into effect. A lot of people have, had to isolate, and their businesses have closed the doors, not by mandate, but purely for supply chain issues and employment issues and the like. And so there's really been sort of this quasi shutdown that's happened. And I think as people slowly come out of that feeling, come out of that reality, I think people really need to start sort of seeing the bigger picture and go, right, well, how do we get Cairns back on track, and how do we start keeping our economy moving and people spending money? And something that will come into that very shortly will be the federal election, and both sides making obviously promises, as they do, for funding for large and important infrastructure projects in Cairns.
It feels like we haven't had some of those big infrastructure projects for a while, and for obvious reasons. And COVID has been a lot of that short-term sugar hits, a lot of those stimulus packages to help businesses through. But it does feel like now's the time that we do need to look to some of those big catalytic projects. So what are some projects, some infrastructure that you'd like to see the city, our business lobby groups really get behind? Particularly, almost needs to happen right now, doesn't it? Because they're talking about this election happening in May. What are some of those projects you'd like to see?
Well, we already have some on the go straight away. They're probably a little bit behind, but it's good to see the soil being turned. So they've got the mental health unit up at the Cairns-based hospital has recently started. There's work started at the CQ University City campus, where the old post office site used to be. So there's already some movement there, which is really good to see. And then imminently future works, which we're hoping to see some announcements or engagement regarding, is a new stadium. So there's obviously been a lot of talk with local and state and federal governments in relation to a rectangular stadium for Cairns, which would be very, very important, I think, to the economy and sports and leisure moving forward. And one other very large federal project that's recently been spoken about by the ports in Cairns is the Cairns Maritime Precinct upgrades. So that involves some quite important upgrades to the marina, piers, for both public and private sort of engagement with the port, and try to increase our economy. As we know, the port is just so important to Cairns.
Absolutely. And I think that CQU CBD campus, I think federal Labor, the opposition, has committed $50 million for that if they were to be elected. So I guess the bit of pressure now on the coalition to try and match that. I think that'd be fantastic for our CBD. So, all right. So a big couple of months, I think, as businesses, do their thing and get back to some kind of normal, as you said, with people coming out of that self-imposed shutdown. I think it's now up to that bigger picture stuff that'll really help to kick the economy along. James Harding from Holding Redlich. Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much.
I'm here with Nicholas Slatyer from Belle Property Cairns. Nicholas, the big question everyone wants to know, what's happening with real estate. January, normally a quiet time in the property market. What are you guys seeing here at Belle?
Like last year, in January, February, March is normally our quietest quarter. This year has begun like last year finished, which is crazy. Very, very busy. No respite for us. Lots of buyers, not much stock. It's busy.
And are those buyers, I think we had spoken last year about a lot of interstate buyers, some sight unseen buying properties. Are you still seeing that in the last couple of months? People from interstate, is it local buyers?
Yeah, for sure. I guess it depends probably on which part of the market you're talking about. Palm Cove, Trinity Beach, Clifton, probably a lot more interstate and a lot more local buyers in the suburbs.
We, of course, have the international borders reopening on February 21, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll start seeing those international tourists coming in. What are you sort of predicting? How will that impact just the general economy in Cairns, but also the property market?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's certainly interesting that our property market has been so busy, and at the same time, obviously local tourism businesses have been struggling. I think if you put into the mix local businesses thriving and a strong property market with a real lack of stock, we could really just be at the beginning of what could be a good upcycle for us.
So there's some room to run, basically.
I think we're at the beginning.
Right. Wow. Okay. Nice pipeline. Nice pipeline to go. All right. Fantastic. Nicholas Slatyer.
Thanks
for your time.
Gavin.